If you're over 60 and want to keep your penis healthy and working well, stop what you're doing and listen closely. What I'm about to share could save you from pain, embarrassment, and even surgery. Yes, you heard that right, surgery. I've seen it happen far too often. I'm Dr. Mohit Kara, a board-certified urologist and men's health specialist. For over 30 years, I've been helping men fathers, veterans, retirees hold on to their health, rebuild their confidence, and protect what matters most: their dignity, their independence, and their quality of life. A lot of men think problems with their penis are just part of getting older, but the truth is many of these issues come from simple, avoidable mistakes. And I still see these mistakes happening every week in my office. So today, I want to talk to you about 10 things you should never do to your penis, especially after 60, and what you can do instead. These tips can help protect you from erectile dysfunction, painful infections, and even cancer. This is serious, but the good news is it's preventable. Be sure to stick people with me through to number 10, because that last mistake is the one I see ruining men's sexual health more than anything else. Before we dive in, if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and hit that button and turn on the notification bell. I share clear, no-nonsense health advice made especially for men over 60. And if this video helps you, let me know by typing a 1 in the comments. If not, type 0. I truly want to bring you content that makes a difference. Alright, let's get started. Let's begin with one of the most overlooked but important signs your body gives you: your erection. Now, it might surprise you, but your ability to get and keep an erection isn't just about sex. It's actually a signal, sometimes the very first, that something might be going wrong inside your body, especially with your heart and blood flow. So here's the first thing you should never do. Never ignore your erections. I want to share something I wish more men heard earlier in life. Erections aren't just about intimacy. They're a kind of health check. Just like your blood pressure or your heartbeat, how your penis functions can give you early warnings. And once you're over 60, those warnings can become even more important. I've had many men come into my office thinking that their weaker erections were just part of aging. They laugh about it or shrug and say, "Doc, it's just not like it used to be." But when we start looking deeper, we often find things like high blood pressure, clogged arteries, or even undiagnosed diabetes. In fact, research has shown that erectile dysfunction can show up years before a heart attack. Just think about that for a moment. Your penis might be warning you about something your heart hasn't spoken up about yet. I remember one man in his early 70s who came in for a routine checkup. He casually mentioned he'd been having trouble with erections for about a year. He thought it was just stress. But after a few tests, we discovered he had coronary artery disease. Because we caught it early, he was able to get treatment, and he's still around today enjoying time with his grandchildren. He told me later, "I thought I came in because of a bedroom problem. Turns out my body was saving my life." Let me be clear here, occasional problems are normal. We all have off days. But if you notice a steady drop in morning erections, arousal, or how things are working, don't ignore it. This isn't about ego. It's about your blood flow, hormones, nerves, and emotional well-being. All of these are connected, and when something's off, your penis is often the first to know. The good news: catching this early can do more than improve your sex life. It could actually help you live longer. So please, don't wait until things get worse. Talk to your doctor, ask questions, and get checked. It's never too late to take charge of your health, because ignoring an erection might seem like a small thing, but what it's trying to tell you could be the biggest thing of all. Now, let me ask you something. What if I told you that one of the most harmful things men do to their penis is something they do when they're trying to fix it? Let's talk about that next. If you're still with me and this is striking a chord, drop a number 1 in the comments so I know you're out there. I really appreciate your engagement. Now let's keep going. It's time for point number 2. Never use home remedies or unproven devices. This one's hard to talk about because I know it often comes from a place of frustration or desperation. I've seen good, intelligent men, hard-working husbands, fathers, veterans go searching online in the middle of the night looking for answers. When things aren't working like they used to, it's tempting to try anything that promises a quick fix. Pills, oils, creams, stretching techniques, homemade gadgets, all offering miracle results with no effort. But I'm here to tell you, after more than 30 years in this field, these so-called solutions can do serious harm. I treated a man in his late 60s who tried a vacuum pump he found on the internet. He was too embarrassed to come in right away, so he waited. The swelling, bruising, and pain got worse until he couldn't bear it anymore. By the time he showed up, the tissue had been badly damaged. And the saddest part? He was just trying to help himself. But he didn't have guidance and he ended up paying the price. There's also something called jelqing, which is spread across online forums and YouTube. It's a method where men repeatedly stretch their penis, hoping it'll get longer or thicker. But what I've seen in real life is far from the promises. It tears delicate tissue, causes scarring, and often leads to long-term erectile dysfunction. And the hardest part is most men never tell anyone they've tried these things. Not until it's too late. Not until the damage is already done. If it sounds too good to be true, especially when it comes to sexual health, it probably is. There's no magical herb, no shortcut, and no plastic gadget that's going to turn back the clock. And none of it can replace proper care from someone who truly understands what's going on inside your body. I know how tough it can be. The silence, the fear, the frustration of wanting to feel like yourself again. But don't trade your hope for harm. Please, talk to someone. Get a real diagnosis. Let's fix the real problem the right way. Because the worst thing you can do to your penis isn't just ignoring it. It's trying to fix it in the dark, all by yourself without real support. Now, speaking of things we tend to ignore, when was the last time you really took a look under the hood? Because what you don't see might be putting you at risk. Let's get into that next. 3. Never skip hygiene, but don't go overboard either. Now, I know hygiene isn't the most exciting topic, but believe me when I say it's one of the most common reasons men end up in my office. I've seen just as many problems from overcleaning as I have from not cleaning enough. It's one of those everyday things that seems simple, but if done wrong, can lead to irritation, infections, and sometimes even more serious trouble. Let me tell you about a patient of mine, a retired truck driver in his early 70s. Tough guy. Spent most of his life on the road. He came in with a red, sore rash on his penis. He looked puzzled and said, "Doc, I wash it twice a day, every day. I don't understand." That was the issue. He was using strong, scented soaps and even scrubbing with a loofah. He thought he was doing the right thing, but he was actually harming his skin. The skin down there is delicate. Especially if you're uncircumcised, the area under the foreskin is particularly sensitive. It doesn't need to be scrubbed like dirty dishes. All it really needs is warm water, a small amount of mild, unscented soap, and a soft towel to gently pat dry. And if you are uncircumcised, don't forget to gently pull the foreskin back and clean underneath. If moisture and bacteria build up, it can lead to something called balanitis. That's a type of inflammation that can cause redness, pain, itching, and in more serious cases, scarring or even trouble pulling the foreskin back at all. On the flip side, some men avoid cleaning or even looking at themselves altogether. Often it's because of embarrassment or maybe messages they picked up growing up, feeling like it's something shameful to touch or examine. But avoiding it doesn't make the problems go away. In fact, that kind of silence can be dangerous. I've had patients who went years without noticing something was wrong just because they never took a moment to check. I'm not saying you should obsess over it, but I am saying it's important to know what your body looks and feels like when everything is normal. That way, if something changes, maybe there's swelling, a sore spot, redness, or something else, you'll catch it early before it becomes a much bigger issue. So keep your hygiene routine simple, consistent, and gentle. Your body deserves care and respect. Now, imagine this. You're doing everything right. You keep things clean. You check yourself. You see your doctor when needed. But one day, you feel a sudden pain, or maybe you notice blood where it shouldn't be. What do you do next? That brings us to the next important point. 4. Never ignore pain, bumps, or bleeding. This is a big one, and it hits close to home for so many men, especially those of us raised in earlier generations. We were taught to be tough, to brush things off, to only speak up when something was really bad. I completely understand that mindset. But when it comes to your health, especially this part of your health, that kind of silence can cost you dearly. I remember one patient, a quiet man in his late 60s. He came to see me only after his wife begged him to get checked. He had noticed a small sore on the head of his penis several months earlier, maybe longer. But it didn't hurt much, so he ignored it. Over time, it got bigger. Still, he waited. He was embarrassed, maybe even scared. By the time he came in, we diagnosed him with late-stage penile cancer. We did everything we could to help, but he ended up needing surgery that changed his life forever. And the heartbreaking truth is, if he'd come in when he first noticed the sore, we may have been able to treat it much more easily. That little voice in your head that says, it's probably nothing, that's not a doctor talking. That's fear pretending to protect you. Don't listen to it. A good doctor isn't going to shame you or make you feel embarrassed. We're here to help. We've seen it all. Whether your symptoms came from sex, an old injury, or something you can't explain, the sooner we find out, the more options we have to protect your health and your quality of life. Remember, your penis isn't just about intimacy. It's tied to your identity, your confidence, and your sense of self. If something hurts, bleeds, or looks unusual, don't tough it out. Pay attention and get help. Now, I want to talk about an injury that always hits a nerve literally and emotionally. One that's more common than you might think, even among older men. It's called a penile fracture. Yes, it's exactly what it sounds like. And yes, it can happen even more often than you'd expect in older men who are trying to show they've still got it. I remember one patient, a 64-year-old widower who had recently started dating again. He came into the emergency room one night, pale and shaking. During intimacy, he had heard a loud pop, followed by sharp pain and swelling. He was terrified, and understandably so. Trying to perform like you're 25 again without adjusting for where your body is now can sometimes backfire. Rough thrusting, risky positions, not communicating with your partner, all of these can raise your risk of injury. And when you're fully erect, your penis is actually more vulnerable than you might realize. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you need to be afraid. You don't have to avoid sex. But you do need to be mindful. The answer isn't less passion, it's more awareness. Use good lubrication. Take your time. Communicate. And if you feel yourself losing control or things get too intense, slow down. You're not made of steel, and pushing too hard can do more harm than good. Alright, now let's shift gears a bit and talk about something a lot of men don't think about: temperature. That's right. Let's talk about why keeping your testicles cool might just be one of the smartest health moves you can make. 6. Never overheat your testicles. Now, I know this one sounds odd at first, but it's backed by science and it's something most men don't think twice about. Your testicles hang outside your body for a reason. They need to stay a little cooler to work properly. But today's world makes that a lot harder. Most men, without realizing it, are warming things up down there more than they should. Heated car seats, tight underwear, sitting for long hours, laptops on your lap, even those heat packs that feel good on sore muscles, they're quietly doing harm when it comes to your sexual health. And no, it's not just about making babies. Even if you're past the age of starting a family, your testicles still play a big role in your overall health. They produce testosterone, which affects your energy, your mood, your muscle strength, your bones, and yes, your erections too. I once worked with a man who had no interest in having more children, but he wanted to stay healthy, strong, and active. When we looked at his hormone levels, they were lower than they should have been. And part of the reason was simple: too much heat. Once we made a few changes, looser clothing, better habits, his levels started to improve. So don't dismiss this one. It's an easy change that can make a real difference over time. And speaking of things we do in private that we don't always realize are harmful, let's move on to a habit I see far too often. A habit that many men don't even know is hurting their sexual health. We'll talk about that next. 7. Never use a tight or aggressive grip during masturbation. Now, this one might feel a little personal, but it's something I've seen more often than you'd believe. Many men come into my office saying, "Doc, I can still get hard sometimes, but it just doesn't feel the same." So we start asking the right questions. And what we often discover is something that's more common than you'd think: years of using a very tight, fast, intense grip when masturbating. You see, over time, that kind of grip teaches your brain and your nerves to respond only to that specific kind of pressure and speed, not to the warmth, rhythm, or more natural sensation of being with a partner. It's something we call the death grip. And no, it doesn't mean anything is wrong with you, it just means your body has gotten used to one particular type of stimulation. It's not about how often you masturbate. That's a personal choice and not the issue. What matters is how you do it. If the way you're stimulating yourself is too intense or too different from what intimacy with a partner feels like, your body starts to rely on that. Then, when the real thing comes along, it just doesn't respond the same way. That can lead to frustration, doubt, and even more performance issues down the road. But here's the good news: you can retrain your body. You can change this pattern. Start by using lubricant. Slow down. Breathe. Try to be more in the moment rather than rushing to the finish line. And most importantly, use a gentler touch, something closer to what it might feel like with another person. Over time, your nerves and brain will start to adjust. And please, don't feel ashamed about any of this. We grew up in a time when men weren't encouraged to talk about these things. We were told to keep it private, keep it quiet. But silence leads to confusion, and confusion leads to habits that may hurt us in the long run. You're not broken. You're human, and with a little patience and self-compassion, you can reconnect with your body in a healthier, more satisfying way. Now let's talk about a habit that, in my opinion, has ruined more erections and more relationships than just about anything else. 8. Never smoke. If there's one thing I could magically remove from every man's life, it would be cigarettes. I've seen more health problems, more sexual problems, and more pain caused by smoking than any other habit. And yes, I know it's a tough one to quit. One of my longtime patients, a former Navy mechanic in his late 60s, once told me, "Doc, I quit drinking. I gave up red meat. But those cigarettes, they stuck with me like an old friend." Unfortunately, that old friend was slowly killing his sex life. He came in saying his erections were weak and unreliable. We ran some tests and the results weren't great. His cholesterol was high, his circulation was poor, and his arteries were narrowing. All of those things are common with smoking, and they don't just hurt your heart or your lungs. They hurt your penis, too. The blood vessels in the penis are small and delicate. If blood can't flow properly, erections become difficult or impossible. And the scary part? That damage often starts years before you feel it. But quitting smoking isn't just about stopping something harmful. It's also about making space for something better, something healing. For example, just moving your body a little more each day, maybe a walk around the block or a bit of light exercise, can do wonders. It helps your blood flow, boosts your testosterone, and lifts your mood. You don't have to become a gym guy. You just have to start moving. I've seen men in their 70s who never touched a dumbbell in their lives begin to feel stronger and more energized simply by adding 30 minutes of walking or using light resistance bands. Small changes really can make a big difference. And while we're talking about things that make a difference, let me ask you something important. How do you talk to yourself when things don't work the way they used to? That brings us to the next point, one that's close to the heart for many men. 9. Never shame yourself for performance issues. If I could take one burden off every man's shoulders, it would be the quiet shame they carry when their body starts to change. I've seen it in their eyes, men in their 60s, 70s, even 80s sitting in my office, afraid to speak up. Not because they're in pain, but because they feel like they've somehow failed. But here's the truth: you haven't failed. You're not broken. You're not less of a man. You're just human. Changes in sexual function are part of life. Every man goes through it in one way or another. Sometimes the cause is physical blood flow, hormone levels, nerve sensitivity. But often, it's something more silent. One bad experience leads to fear. That fear causes overthinking. And the more you worry, the harder it becomes to relax, and the cycle continues. Before long, it's not your body holding you back. It's the story you've started telling yourself. A story of doubt, fear, and pressure. But here's what I want you to remember. There's help out there. You don't have to suffer in silence. You don't have to figure this out on your own. Whether it's with a doctor, a therapist, or just a trusted partner, opening up is the first step toward healing. And now, I want to leave you with something important. It's the last point, but maybe the most powerful one of all. 10. Never stop having erections entirely. You've probably heard the saying, use it or lose it. Well, that applies here, too. As men age, if erections stop happening altogether, the tissue inside the penis can begin to change. It loses flexibility. Blood flow slows. Scar tissue can build up. And yes, over time, this can lead to actual shrinkage. Not a myth. Not an exaggeration. Real, measurable loss in both size and function. Even your brain can start turning down your sexual response if it no longer sees a reason to keep it active. It's just like any system in the body. If you stop using it, it begins to slow down. I once had a patient in his late 60s who had gone years without a single erection. No intimacy, no self-stimulation. He told me he figured that part of his life was just over. But once we began addressing the physical and emotional parts together, he slowly began to reconnect with that side of himself. And it changed everything. He felt more alive, more confident, more like himself again. So no, this isn't about putting pressure on yourself to perform. It's about giving yourself permission to stay connected to this part of your life, to your sense of energy, intimacy, and closeness. Especially if you're in a long-term relationship, that connection matters deeply. If you've felt yourself pulling away from this part of life, ask yourself, is it because you truly don't want it anymore, or because you've given up believing it's still possible? I've spent decades talking with thousands of men, many just like you. Men who've worked hard, raised families, overcome challenges, and quietly carried questions and fears about their changing bodies. And I want you to know something important. You are not alone, and it is never too late to care for your health, your confidence, and your quality of life. We've talked about a lot today. We started by looking at erections not just as a sexual function, but as a signal, one of the first signs your body gives when something deeper might be going on. And we went through the most common mistakes I've seen men make, things that can lead to real harm if they're not caught early. We talked about home remedies, unproven devices, and how trying to fix things alone without proper guidance can do more damage than good. We covered the importance of hygiene, not ignoring pain or unusual symptoms, and how a moment of hesitation can sometimes lead to outcomes that are harder to treat later on. We also looked at injuries like penile fractures. Yes, they happen, and how trying to prove we're still in our prime without listening to our body can backfire. Then there was heat, something most men never think twice about. But keeping your testicles cool really can help your hormones and your sexual health in the long run. We talked about the death grip and how something as private as the way we touch ourselves can quietly shape how our body responds over time. And smoking, probably the single most damaging habit when it comes to your blood flow, your erections, and your long-term health. But beyond the physical, we dug into the emotional side of things too. The shame, the pressure, the silence that so many men carry when things don't work the way they once did. And I hope I made one thing clear. You're not alone. These changes are normal, and they deserve care, not criticism. And finally, we ended with something that might matter more than all the rest: staying engaged, staying connected. Not giving up on your sexual health just because you've reached a certain age. Because this part of you doesn't stop mattering. Not at 60. not at 70, not ever. Sexual health isn't just about youth. It's about connection. It's about energy, confidence, and staying present in your body and in your life. It's about being informed, empowered, and proud of the man you are right now, today. So, if you've been waiting for someone to tell you it's okay to care again, this is it. Now is the time. If this message spoke to you, even just one part of it, I'd love for you to give this video a thumbs up. It helps more than you know. And if you know someone, a friend, a brother, a partner who could use this message, share it with them. You never know who might need to hear it. And don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on notifications. I'll be posting more videos like this, honest, respectful conversations about men's health, made especially for men like you who are ready to stay strong, stay informed, and live well at every stage of life. Thanks for spending this time with me. Take care of yourself. You deserve it.